The Declaration of Independence is just that. It's a declaration. It's not law. It's not binding upon anybody. It's just what somebody declared. Just like Spooner says, he can go upon the commons of Boston and declare whatever he wants. But that doesn't make it authoritative. It doesn't make it law. It's just those who want to believe what he says, believes what he says, and those that don't want to believe it, they don't have to believe it.
You were saying about...
Yeah, the gross national product of the South was 3 times the North.
All right, restate that. What was the gross national product of the South?
3 times.
As larger than the North?
Of the North. I don't have any particular thing. This is all off the top of my head, so
okay.
I'm trying to remember, and I think it was, if you put a number on it, it would be $3 million a month versus $1 million a month for the North.
All right, so prior to the Civil War, is this correct?
Yes, prior to the Civil War.
The South was kicking the North's butt economically.
Oh, yeah, big time. I mean, the ports of Charleston, forget about New York and Philadelphia ports, Charleston and all the southern ports, Virginia, they had so much more trade from them. Because remember, the South had a lot of cotton, a lot of, peanuts, a lot of whatnot.
They had all the raw materials.
They had all the raw materials, yeah. And the North, well, yeah, they had, Jersey had a lot of farming, and Pennsylvania had a lot of cows and farming, but nothing like the South because the growing season was so much better.
Absolutely.
They were more industrialized in the North than mining and oil and stuff like this, although they did have some oil fields in North Carolina. Over towards the coast more.
Yeah, but oil doesn't become a real player until after the Civil War, even though they were aware of it. Yeah.
Right.
So,
but, you're talking pine trees and stuff like this, and forestry, and all kinds of plants, and like you're in Florida, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got citrus fruits, right?
Right.
There's no citrus fruits up north.
Oh no, not only that, but cotton was a big player too.
Sure. That's what I say, cotton and before the boll weevil.
Okay, right.
But they and the shipping and whatnot, and they had so much more over the North. That's why the banks of France and the Prussian Tsar and everything. That's why they dealt with the South much more than they did the North.
Oh, then let me ask you this though, then, because you've stated that. So states' rights, was that really the issue, or was it a fact that the South, as a bloc, was doing so much better than the North?
Yeah, so it wasn't really, states' rights or slavery or anything like that. I mean, even when you read Lincoln's papers, it wasn't over slavery. He could care less. He just wanted to control the South because of the money.
Now, was the South making noise prior to the Civil War that, like, why were you even involved with these bozos?
The difference between the Bank of England fronted most of the money up north, while the Bank of France fronted most of the money in the South.
Oh, so this still is an extension of the European problems.
That's right. And this is what people don't realize, they got to get in. There's researchers and there's researchers. Just like there's doctors and mechanics and mechanics. There's some roughshod mechanics and there's some guys you bet your car's life on it, right?
But now, I mean, are you on board with the accounts that seem to be credible? I'm going to ask you that the Civil War was wreaking havoc to a certain extent with the economy in Europe. And the Brits had said, basically, the Brits had said, you basically don't get this over with, we're going to come in.
Yeah.
Now, apparently they moved troops into Canada. On the other hand, the French moved troops into Mexico. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know how nefarious that was. Some placed that at the hands of the Vatican, who had told Maximilian to get over there and do that. On the other hand, you look at France, as you're saying, that the Bank of France is backing the South. Mm-hmm. Then they have a little stake. So I don't know unless that's congruent. I mean, I don't know.
No, they have a lot of stake because you see, the banks in France and everything. Remember, the Bank of England. Let's just say the private bank in England. Has nothing to do with England, just a big conglomeration. Now, a lot of these conglomerations of the people on the board of the Bank of England own the Bank of France. So there's infighting in there between these people, the German Fruggers. The Bank of England would not allow the German Fruggers, they call them, to be a member of their bank. They would not allow any Jewish people to be a member of their bank, no matter whether it was Rothschild or not. They were not Jewish-oriented, and they weren't German Frugger-oriented.
Well, did the Rothschilds control the Bank of France?
To a great extent, yes.
But apparently they were independent enough that they could go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously, bid against the Bank of England with the North.
Right. Now, a good movie to see, and I can't remember, it was made in 1929, Rothschilds, and it was a whole story on the Rothschilds, and I saw it on TV once about 8 years ago.
Really?
I wished I could have remembered it, what the name of it was, but it was a good story. But knowing what you know on history, and you looked at it, you got a totally different slant than the average person going to the movie theater, sitting down and watching it for 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so many things you pick up. Oh, that's why. Oh, that's, it's just like boom, 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 right down the line.
Yeah, I don't mean to muddy the waters, but I will say this. There's an account where the Vatican and the Pope basically told Maximilian to get over there.
Oh, yeah, because got to remember who fronted the Vatican in the war in the Crusades?
The Rothschilds.
That's right. So that's where the Vatican cabal with the Rothschilds, the bank, and them really took over control of the British subjects in 1215 because everything was turned over to the Vatican under the spoils of war. So that the king could be recommunicated, and he was excommunicated, and his soul was never to go to heaven, according to them. And back in those days, they believed everything the Vatican said, and therefore that's why he turned all of his land and all the subjects even over to the Vatican control. And then the Vatican turned around and gave him power back as like a proprietor, like he did over here in America, when he gave the 7 proprietors control of all the land, and he took a quitrent tax instead of the ad valorem tax. That's how they were paid.
Well, you did say that the Rothschilds staked the Vatican during the Civil War, or around that time?
Yeah. And they staked a lot of them. They believe it or not, the bank, the Rothschilds, staked Germany and the United States and England. He had his hand in all 3 countries fighting each other. Have you
ever read the book by Burke McCarty in 1929, The Suppressed Truth About the Assassination of Abraham Lincoln?
No, I never read that.
Well, here's what's interesting. I mean, here's a book about the whole Vatican intrigues in the assassination of Lincoln, but it also says in kind of a forward kind of way, I mean, the forward to a book, a prologue, if you will.
Right.
It says that it says 2 things. One, it says that right now, the Vaticans are in Japan, not the Vatican, the Jesuits, I'm sorry, at the behest of the Vatican, are in Japan to instigate anti-American sentiment for a future war. And she writes this in 1929.
Right.
Another thing she stated was there was a time when the Rothschilds backed more or less financially the Vatican, but that has more than turned the other way around.
Right.
There was a time when they got a helping hand, but the Vatican certainly.
Well, that might be part of what I read in Manuel's book. Although I didn't read the particular book you're talking about, it did state as to why they told Stimson, who was
Secretary of War at the time.
Yeah. Told Rockefeller, because he was tied in with Rockefeller too.
Right.
Told Roosevelt in 1933, when he first came in, Roosevelt wanted to fight Japan right then and there, and they said no, bide the time because this and this and this and happened, and the oil fields of your buddy Rockefeller in
China, right?
They're being attacked, and this is why when they do that, now you can institute the war, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
In 1933, he wanted to start the war.
Well, who, Roosevelt?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that he didn't want to do anything, but he was instigated to do such.
Right.
Probably by the Rockefellers. And I tell you what, Smedley Butler said the same thing.
Yeah.
Butler, obviously in War is Iraq, had talked about making oil fields safe in China for the Rockefellers.
Right.
And they got freaked out when Japan went nuts.
Yep.
Because they thought they would overtake that. So, would you agree that really presidents don't initiate anything? They are basically the executor of other plans.
Yeah, all he is a front man.
Yeah, and he to this day, he probably looms as the president, I think, with the most impact on American life and history.
Right.
All that took place. And are you